Everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockchain and Decentralized Finance on AWS. I am thrilled to learn from three exceptional founders that are really expanding traditional finance's comfort zone. So looking forward to the discussion today. My name is Jeff Hasselman. I am the global lead for digital assets, crypto, and blockchain for startups at AWS. I'll be your host on this DeFi Odyssey for the next hour. A couple of housekeeping rules, or housekeeping items, I should say. We've got a good mix of attendees today, from Fortune 100 enterprises to people who are starting a company in their apartment or garage. So it's a great mix of people here to learn. And we ask that everyone remains muted outside of the panelists. And just so everyone knows, the session will be recorded. Essentially, we'll be spending the next 45 minutes discussing various topics, just leaving about 15 minutes for audience Q&A. And with that, I'll say, if you do have a question, feel free to use the chat, submit the question there, and please put your name and the company you work for, because that'll help identify as I ask those questions to the panelists at the end of our conversation today. And then also, I just sit back, enjoy, and open your mind to the possibilities of what DeFi has to offer. So with that, as I said, I'm really excited to have this discussion with the three founders. They all have extensive understanding of building companies in digital assets, blockchain, and the crypto segment. Please welcome Medha Parlikar, a founder and CTO of Casper Labs, Jordan Kruger, founder, CEO of Vesper Finance, and Jeff Garzik, founder, CTO of Vesper Finance. Medha, I'm going to start with you. Can you share your background? Tell us a little bit about Casper Labs. And I always love to throw in there, how about a fun fact about yourself?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so Medha Parlikar, CTO, one of the co-founders of Casper Labs, the builders of the Casper protocol, the public Casper blockchain. And I've got more than 30 years of technology experience, and started working with tech in the early 80s, building computers in the basement. And I was one of the first kids in my college dorm that actually had a personal computer, a word processor. So I've been working with word processors for a very, very long time. And, at the dawn of the internet, I got involved there, and then started working with software as a service, now known as cloud computing, back during the dot-com boom, right? And so I've worked at companies like Adobe, Omniture, and most recently Avalara Sales Tax, doing their fintech and content management systems, and fell into the blockchain rabbit hole in about 2017 and founded Casper Labs in collaboration with my partners in October 2018. So very, very excited to be here. And just for the record, I'm a big AWS fan. Casper Labs uses AWS extensively. We rely on it like our bread and butter for all of our internal testing and development operations. And I've been using Amazon since 1999. So I've been a Prime customer for over 20 years. So I'm a big fan of what you guys have been doing.
Awesome. Love that. Thanks for the plug there, Medha.
You bet.
And thanks for being a customer for so long. So
Yeah.
You're one of the early ones going back to 1999. So
Yep.
That's fantastic. So Jordan, I'll turn it to you. Let's hear a little bit about your background and tell us about Vesper Finance.
Sure. And starting with fun fact, since you did ask for that, Swadika, Chanchu, Jordan Kruger, Puk Pasatai, Nitnoy, Chan UT, North Carolina, Chan Damyan, Crypto, Ma Gao, Pilau. So my fun fact is I'm conversational in Thai. And that was also my brief introduction. I'm Jordan Kruger. I've been in this space for about since 2012 now, and met Jeff Garzik in 2015. Joined Block, one of the first employees at Block. And then really saw the opportunity in the DeFi space while we were launching the first DeFi project that Block built, which was Metronome in 2017, 2018. And from there, really saw the opportunity to do more and take some of the Lego bricks that have been built in this space and really start to put those together to create a really simple to use, simple and safe user experience for people to be able to passively earn on their crypto and to continue to compound passively without having to continue to babysit it and really have to have deep technical knowledge of the space.
Excellent. Very, very cool. I love the fun fact too. So getting a little bit of love in the chat as I noticed too. So that's fantastic, Jordan. So thanks for being here. And Jeff, I'll finish up with you as far as backgrounds and a fun fact.
Sure. Hello all. Another AWS fan here. I've been computer programming since the age of 8. I was a Linux core dev, and that's where I first got into cloud computing back in the 90s. So I watched the birth of AWS, and when I worked at Red Hat, watched the ascent of it, and really loved how it took Linux, which was my heart and my bread and butter, at the core of Amazon, really to the next level. So Linux core dev under Linus Torvalds, hopped over to Bitcoin and blockchain, which kind of bootstrapped us into this call here as a Bitcoin core developer. And then finally stepped away from building software to build companies. And I've been building blockchain at Block since 2015 as the CEO and CTO, and now CTO and Chief Designer of Vesper Finance. Fun fact is I race Jeeps. I was the Jeep Speed Class 1700 champion last year during the coronavirus racing season.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Jeff, you and I've had a couple conversations on that. So I love that you shared that as your fun fact. So let's get into this. I'll start with both Medha and Jordan on this question. Medha, I'll start with you. What is the definition of DeFi? Just for those, we do have some people who are listening, they're trying to get an understanding of what's taking place in the space, what's happening here. You obviously have some people that know what's going on in the space, but just, I'd love to get your take on what the definition of DeFi is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an acronym, right? It's an acronym for decentralized finance. And it generally refers to like digital assets, smart contracts, protocols, and decentralized applications that are built on public blockchain protocols like Ethereum. And it's really a new form of financial software that's built using blockchain technology. And these little building blocks, little financial applications, or programmable money, it's also called, can be pieced together like money blocks, right? So there's some really interesting things that you can build using DeFi.
Excellent. Jordan, I'd like to see if you could add anything to that.
Yeah, I think that to really understand what DeFi is, it's important to look back at what has built DeFi, and looking back at what Bitcoin is and what the first application in crypto has been. And it's really the simple peer-to-peer payments. And from there, we've been able to start to think about how else we can revolutionize the financial space by eliminating the need for the central authority and the middleman. And so fast forward from Bitcoin to Ethereum, when we started to have smart contracts, and the smart contracts really started to open the door to what we can do. And so with DeFi, it really is this financial application layer that is really powered by these smart contracts, and it is completely permissionless and free of the middleman. And it is really starting to take also what we can do in finance to the next level.
Yeah, I love to kind of start that way, just so that people have some sense. Obviously, there's curiosity with people who are listening, and just to get an understanding. And from your perspectives, people that are building in this space and getting an understanding of how you can, just what DeFi is all about. So I appreciate that insight. And Jeff, I'll actually turn to you on this. Jordan was starting to hint on it a little bit, but can you walk us through what the genesis of decentralized finance is and kind of what led us to this point? And I just like to get your perspective on that, just with you having been in the space for so long, basically I'll say one of the founding fathers, if you will, of the space. I'd love to get your take on that. Sure.
Yeah. So there's really a stepwise function. Not completely bear hugging Amazon here, but just cloud computing in general, I think, was our step one. into we had the internet. Now we have cloud computing. That's really multiple computers working together for a common cause. The essence of distributed computing, right? And with Amazon being a leader there, the Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, really took a lot of those themes. He took a lot of software off a shelf that had already been cryptanalyzed, already proven in the field, and he put it together in a new and interesting way, creating Bitcoin. And so that was the first sort of fully synthetic, fully self-sovereign, permissionless, censorship-resistant money and token. That was kind of step two. And so now you have a token. Now you need to do stuff with the token. And that's building value-added services, putting business logic on top of this peer-to-peer network and this permissionless resistant token technology. And so if we're going to, for example, in the regulated space, put equity on a blockchain, or put governance tokens like Vesper has, or commodity and currency tokens like Bitcoin or USDC, we're going to need business logic that goes along with it. So Ethereum and some of the next generation blockchains, they added a new feature, self-sovereign entities. And so you can give a smart contract, which is programmable logic, its own kind of bank account number, to super simplify it, its own contract address. And there's no human entity engaged in receiving that asset, sending that asset. It's entirely programmable business logic. And those simple Lego blocks, those simple primitives, self-sovereign on blockchain entities, programmable logic, peer-to-peer tokens, and cloud computing, the sum of that stack is what was the genesis of DeFi. And so from a technology side, we needed to step up that ladder as each technology was developed. But there's the economic side as well, right? There's a need to do things with these tokens. These tokens on public blockchains form an economy, just like the world economy. And every single one of those, it needs lending, it needs borrowing, it needs swapping with the greater token economy out there. One of the amazing things in the past 10 years has been the DEX, which allows any token and any trader to swap between any two tokens. And there's a swap to swap to swap to swap that occurs in the background, but it's, from a user perspective, it's permissionless, just like the internet. And that was the final genesis of DeFi, is you needed permissionless entry by users. You needed that technology stack. And then you needed those economic drivers that we need: lending, we need borrowing, we need trading, we need derivatives, all the traditional financial tools that needed to be built. And so that had to be built in the smart contracts, thus DeFi.
Thank you for that overview. It's great, like all three of you, just what you bring to the table when it comes to this. So thanks, Jeff, on that. One other just note for those listening: Jeff is one of the few people that's actually communicated with Satoshi, as they communicated digitally, if you will. So it's kind of interesting on that front. So that would be for another time. You were talking about a couple of things there, Jeff, and I have a brain teaser. I love to kind of bring these into these types of conversation. And Jordan, I'll start with you on this one. I'll seek each one of your input on this, but the brain teaser is the total addressable market of DeFi. It's really difficult to quantify, as Jeff was kind of alluding to with kind of as he was discussing the genesis. It's really like a non-zero game. It encapsulates the entire global economy when you really get down to it. How would you calculate that number? Jordan, I'll go to you on that.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because you really, what you captured there with it encapsulates the entire global economy. And I think that's a great point, because DeFi has the potential to really be used by everyone. And today, it is really being used by people who are in crypto. It is being used by people who have at least an understanding. But I think that the DeFi of tomorrow looks very different. It starts to look more like anybody who is using anything having to do with finance has the potential to be using DeFi. And the reason for this is everything that we have always loved about crypto. DeFi does not have the same limitations that you would expect with traditional banking systems or financial systems. And so when I think back to 2012, one of the things that really drew me into crypto in the first place was this idea of for those who are the bankless who don't have a stable banking system do have the ability to use crypto. And so I think that that starts to come into play even more when we are thinking about DeFi. And so the number to me is really limitless. And it really, we are starting to just discover what the potential of DeFi is. And so I don't think that you can actually start to put a number there because it truly is a limitless number.
Very cool. And Medha, I'd really like to get your perspective on this brain teaser.
Yeah, it definitely is a brain teaser, right? I mean, as you think about it, I tend to agree with Jordan that there really isn't a ceiling that we can see right now. But if you just take a look back, right now, the market cap for these digital assets is over 1.5 trillion. And I'm not even sure that that includes Bitcoin's market capitalization alone, right? And when you consider that, it's growing at such a crazy rate, right? It's going to grow, number one, in terms of the breadth, in terms of the number of products that are being offered, but it's also going to grow in terms of user base, right? Because like Jordan said, you've only got about 5 to 10%, maybe 5%, maybe less than 5% penetration in the market today. And absolutely through history, you have seen that people always migrate to a harder form of money. And while the topic, whether DeFi and cryptocurrency is a harder form of money, may be up for debate, what we're seeing in the adoption curve right now is that people are waking up and taking notice, as well as a lot of big financial institutions are also taking notice. And I think they're recognizing that cryptocurrency is here to stay, and they are exploring brand new products and markets that they can now go into using these new instruments and tools and DeFi protocols.
Excellent. I love I like the way you set that up. And Jeff, like I'll leave the final part of this question to you. What you think, if you can add to both what Jordan and Medha added to the conversation.
Well, being a fan of history and geopolitics, I kind of back into it with, there are 1 billion Chinese that are coming into the middle class and getting smartphones, and all of those are economic actors. There's another 1 billion in India that are coming into the middle class, and they're all getting smartphones and getting online, and they're all economic actors. We're very big believers in public blockchain in particular, and just the payment freedom and economic freedom aspects that brings. And so it is a matter of, we think that the TAM is literally the entire world. And the challenge is regulatory. Our central bank digital currencies, which are on the tip of the tongue of every central bank right now, is that really going to follow a enforced route, which puts pressure on cryptocurrencies? Or are they going to really exist as kind of a yin and yang of central bank digital currencies and freedom, free private currencies? So that's what I see playing out at the world stage. And every time I do a real estate wire, and where I have to show 4 forms of ID, print out 10 pieces of physical paper just to wire $60,000 versus a click through MetaMask, Chrome, and it's done. There's just no competition in terms of user friction, user outcome, user experience. But I'm full eyes wide open. I think crypto has a ways to go in terms of user safety, protecting the average consumer. And so where does all that melange meet in the middle is equals TAM.
I think the summary from all three of you, for those listening, if you're thinking about starting in the space, starting a company, it's limitless as far as the potential where this could go. So I think and that's one, I love the way you each answered it, because it just shows if you're a founder and you're trying to create something, there's a lot of room to play, and it's something that just be inspired and go do it. So I love that aspect. So thanks for sharing that insight. Jordan, I'm going to turn to you. And now that we've given the definition, we've talked about kind of the TAM, total addressable market. What's the current state of DeFi? Where are we today? What is it right now? A question a lot of people use, and I'm a former professional athlete, so I use like sports analogies. So I was a hockey player, so I'll use it from a hockey perspective. Are we in the pregame skate? Are we in the first period, second period, third period? Where are we at when it comes to DeFi? And if you can just give your thoughts on the current state.
We are very much in the first period. I go Lightning. I will just go ahead and throw that in there. We are first period. We are still very early days, but we are starting to build a very solid foundation. And I think that we are starting to build the necessary tools, the necessary building blocks in order to really build a solid start and be able to have a very powerful system in place over the next 5 years. And I think that what to me has been probably the biggest thing for DeFi over the past few months has been the pressure test that we have seen just with the markets. We have seen so much volatility, and the systems that we have, the protocols, have been able to show that they are resilient. Today, we have 65 billion assets under management across all the different DeFi platforms. And what I have taken away from all of this is that we have been able to do what we set out to do as an industry. We went out and built these lending platforms, these DEXs, and we were able to do so to withstand any of the market conditions and anything that can, any challenge. And that's something that for such an early stage, you're always unsure about. And so all of this stress testing has really been able to build also better platforms. We've been able to take this, we've been able to evolve. And you'll hear me time and time again say that one of the greatest strengths of DeFi is our ability to iterate and iterate quickly. I don't see that in any other space, is that we can take challenges that have been something such as impermanent loss and come up with solutions in a very timely manner that affect the entire industry. And so that to me just provides such a clear path forward for what we can do and what we should be achieving in the next few years.
Excellent. Thanks for that. And Medha, I'm gonna shift gears a little bit on it. And Jordan, I may look for some thoughts on this from you also, but barriers to entry or greater integration to the financial system, I think seems to be a big part of DeFi and kind of where this may be going. And we've talked about like different countries. Jeff was alluding to like India, China, the number of people that are receiving phones and kind of digging into that. How do we make the Medha, how do we make the financial system more accessible? Like how can you touch on that and kind of give us your insights and kind of how Casper Labs is looking at that?
Yeah, definitely. So, Casper Labs has taken a little bit of a orthogonal approach to, implementing public blockchain, is that we've implemented a public blockchain for enterprise specifically. And so we do provide kind of like bridge, but not in the typical blockchain term. When you think of a bridge, we put kind of one foot in each camp, right? We believe in immutable transaction history, but we do support this notion of upgradable contracts and certain controls around contracts, certain access controls that are possible. And we feel that this is a necessary intermediate step for a lot of financial institutions and traditional businesses to adopt public blockchain before they move to a fully immutable type of space, right? And the reasons for this is we believe the future is yet unwritten, right? The past, of course, should be completely immutable, but your future as a company, your future needs of your customers, the future needs of your applications, and future features that you can implement with new protocols, that necessarily needs to enable a certain amount of immutability around your contract state moving forward on the blockchain. So we're looking at it a little bit differently, but we believe that enabling businesses a way to rapidly iterate with their DeFi applications on a public protocol like Casper is really important in terms of meeting the needs of customers and delivering that terrific user experience. If we look at what consumers are doing today, you'll find that most consumers rarely keep cash in their pocket. And in fact, we've gone away from using cash to using debit and credit cards to now using our phones and really just tapping the phone with Apple Pay or other digital forms of payment, as Venmo, PayPal, you name it. Virtually in almost every jurisdiction, we're seeing this, right? So I feel like integrating that into a ecosystem of decentralized finance is going to be it's not going to be easy, but it's at least well-defined, right? We know exactly where we need to meet the customers in terms of the user experience. And I think that's going to be really key in terms of crossing that chasm.
Right. Medha, you bring me back to my early career. I was part of a company where we were the first non-bank to deploy ATMs or cash machines. So we were hoping to put cash in people's hands, and now that's completely gone. So
yeah.
Like back in those days, it was everyone would go to the same ATM essentially. So it's funny how it's completely flipped to where we are today. So Jordan, any thoughts to add to that as far as barriers to entry and how we make this system, the financial system, more accessible?
Yeah, I think that the accessibility issue is probably the greatest challenge. And so if we think about what the two biggest audiences are that are limited right now, it's kind of the new crypto users as well as the larger financial institutions, or more of the those looking for something that is similar to a traditional finance experience. And I think that what we are continuing to see is that people are wanting to stay more in their comfort zone. And they're wanting to have an entry point that feels more like what they experience in traditional finance. And so what we are really needing to do, I think, is start to build some of those bridges to traditional finance that really allows for more adoption for these users. And so with Vesper, one thing that I'm very proud of is that there's a partnership between Blockforce Capital and the Vesper DAO. And so this is really starting to provide an entry point for those users where they can participate in DeFi, and the Blockforce Capital is providing an easy way for them to do that, where this DeFi fund is going to be investing in DeFi products, and Vesper in particular. And so I'm really excited about what these bridges look like, and really challenge us as an industry to continue to look for every opportunity like that to build more bridges.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Blockforce angle, that the partnership you have there. It's for those listening, I recommend just going to Vesper Finance's page and looking at just that press release and how that kind of works. It's a really cool aspect of what they're trying to do. So shifting gears, Jeff, I'll go to you with this, and Medha, I definitely want to get your perspective too on this. So gas prices, it's an interesting aspect, and yesterday we saw it again on the Ethereum network, albeit it was due to Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis's Stoner Cats NFT release, where it kind of clogged the system, but the prices went through the roof for a short time. Are gas fees a problem for DeFi?
Well, amusingly for you in the audience, on my prep sheet, it had Medha going first, and I was sitting here thinking to myself, "Man, she is gonna hit it out of the park. I mean, she is gonna take this question and hit a double home run." So I'm just gonna tee it up for her. I think, the short one-word answer is yes. When I look at financial inclusion, I think about people who are earning just a couple bucks a day, and if they want to access the network, they literally can't. It's economically impossible for billions of people to access Ethereum right now. And we saw similar problems in Bitcoin in years past. Is no reasonable average person can afford $50 transaction fees. That just prices out a vast amount of economic activity. And the way blockchain technology works, there's kind of this tiered system where that's evolving in I feel, a Darwinian fashion, where Bitcoin and Ethereum are more trending towards settlement networks. And then you have, and again, teeing up Casper Labs here, you have folks like Casper that, give you a higher, they give you high-speed rail. I'm a rail fan as well. They give you high-speed rail, and then kind of the central junction points. I've started to call Ethereum Grand Central Station, because it's more about economic interconnection and settlement at the Bitcoin and Ethereum so-called layer 1 levels. And then I feel that where people are not economically priced out of the system is going to be these high-speed rails that interconnect, but they aren't literally Ethereum or Bitcoin.
And Medha teed up perfectly for you.
Yeah, definitely, right? So one of the core value propositions with Casper is that we will have stable pricing, right? Stable and predictable pricing. And our transaction model or execution model is very different from Ethereum in that transactions come in first in the order that they were received, first in, first out, right? And there's more details around the execution model, but basically it's not possible for miners to selectively choose which transactions are processed before, first or second. So what this does is it gives everybody an equal shot for their transaction to go through. We feel this is very, very important in terms of accessibility and inclusion, so that everybody can have access to the blockchain protocol, right? And yeah, absolutely, people are being priced out of DeFi because it's so expensive, right? So if you weren't there in the beginning, now you run into a bit of a liquidity jam where you're spending $200 or $300 in ETH just to participate in a DeFi protocol. So you get stuck in this good old fashioned, I need to have a certain amount of money before I can make money. And we really don't want, the blockchain technology to ultimately land up there, right? So gas prices are one of the biggest hurdles. I think all blockchains at some point will have to ensure that they have scalability. Ethereum is doing a lot of work in that space, but that work is still pretty far out, and we're not sure when it's going to land, right? And a lot of protocols such as Casper and others are coming up with faster rails, to support these kinds of DeFi applications.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, it definitely, where we sit, it certainly is it's something, I think you hit it right on the head there, Medha, as far as everyone's going to need to address this, so that we can have that accessibility and inclusion for all to play in this space. Before I move on, I'll just to the audience, if you have any questions with the audience Q&A coming up, please put those in the chat. Happy to go through those. And again, when you submit it, please put your name and also the company that you work for. Moving toward, I'll stay with you, Medha, on this, and Jeff also, just as being CTOs of companies in this space, how does the cloud play into DeFi? And I'll piggyback on that. Just how does AWS help you?
Absolutely. I'm happy to take this one. So we're very excited that we're going to be partnering with AWS. You can now run a Casper node from within AWS. So we recognize that enterprises use AWS for their infrastructure needs, which is why we partnered, so closely and are continuing to partner closely with AWS to help their customers be successful. So I think that, AWS is a fantastic place where enterprises can rapidly prototype and experiment with blockchain technology. Of course, when you talk about decentralized protocols, I'm going to say this, Jeff, right? I love that more validators are running bare metal all across the world, or at the minimum, they're decentralizing their AWS instances in a variety of different regions of AWS, right? Because decentralization is super important for public protocols, right? And Casper nodes, both in our testnet and our mainnet, are run in AWS. We're well aware of that. But speaking to enterprises specifically, we recognize that enterprises want to run private and permission networks, and we felt that AWS was a natural extension by which they could quickly do that within their own, infrastructure models, making it really, really easy for Casper to integrate into their existing architectures. So for us, AWS is a big partner.
Thank you for being that. We love working with you, and especially the trajectory that you're on as far as what's happening there. So it's fun, especially how you're working close with enterprises and ways that we can kind of collaborate, because we work with a lot of enterprises. So how can we help you out on that front? So that's something that it's fun just seeing as Casper Labs continues to mature, just ways that we can work together and help out and play a small role. Jeff, I'll turn it to you on the cloud question.
Sure. Well, going back to my Linux background, the ability to rapidly scale up using cheap computers was always central to cloud computing, and that hasn't changed in the decades since. Very specifically, we also have a number of nodes, blockchain nodes that we run. In fact, folks can go to block.com. We sell nodes as a service, and vast majority of that is on AWS. So we do spot fleets. We do a lot of EC2 with those. We do a lot of storage snapshotting. So we're a lot of Amazon strengths we knew about and we're leaning into. Some of these Ethereum nodes, they're as much as 1 terabyte of data, and you can't shard that or split that out. And when we need to rapidly spin up nodes, we're using our already snapshotted 1 terabyte of data. We spin up another node, and it's up and running very rapidly. On top of that, we couldn't live without Lambda. We build all our APIs through Lambda. That's kind of it's born in Lambda, and then maybe it needs to grow to Elastic Beanstalk or a dedicated setup. But it gets us up and running and gets us a scalable API immediately on kind of day zero. And then finally, we in the crypto space, you get a lot of DDoSs and bad acting and things of that nature that you have to deal with on your infrastructure. And so our app.vesper.finance, which is our front end to our D app, that's fronted by Amazon as well. And so we've brushed off several, which is unfortunately typical DDoS attacks, and just kind of kept humming along. We probably wouldn't exist without cloud. I think it's fair to say. And though we are hybrid cloud, we have some private, some public cloud, most AWS. The final thing is interoperability. Being a decentralized protocol, all these are open source. We can't just go with one provider. We literally can't. And AWS allows us to kind of mix and match because as I followed from the early AWS days, it was all about open internet protocols and very standard protocols that you guys are managing and hosting. And so that allows us to plug in private cloud and other competing clouds just pretty much seamlessly. So, we live and die by our cloud. I love how kind of the multi-decade trajectory has been just more dense computing units going from, a little shared hosting to, EC2 to now containers and Lambda and a lot of that just denser. It really has a payoff on the cost side in reducing our costs. So we can scale up quickly for less, and that really means a lot at the end of the day.
Excellent. Thanks both for sharing that. And a question I love asking CTOs or just whoever I talk to in general is, what service, product, or dev tool or whatever it may be, Matt, I'll go to you first on this. What is something you wish you had that you don't have, that you wish someone, say in AWS, could help provide? But I'm curious what your take is on that.
Oh gosh, a dev tool that I wish I had?
Yes.
Oh boy, gosh, and whenever I have one of those things, I just ask the dev team to build it and they just build it for me. I have to think about this for a second. I really wish that there was a good, solid way to help out people that have lost their private keys. Like it really sucks, or a really good way in the crypto space to validate whether this destination address is in fact a legitimate destination address, right? And so many times we see people that have sent their tokens to the wrong address. And it's very difficult because a lot of these blockchains, you want to support offline key generation, right? So, to kind of dig into a little bit on the technicalities, for security reasons, you want to be able to generate keys without communicating with the blockchain. But the problem happens then if you happen to send your tokens to an address that doesn't exist, the blockchain doesn't know that, right? It's just a string of some length, and that's all you can check for is the length of the string. There's no way for the blockchain to know whether or not you have the private keys, right? This is the asymmetric key cryptography. It's a feature, but it's also like an Achilles heel because there's no way to validate that the key is actually any good, that the destination is actually any good. And so we see this happening a lot. And it's very, very disappointing because there isn't anything you can do to help recoup those lost funds. They're burned forever, right? So that would be like the one tool I would love to have is that.
Got it. And Jeff?
Yeah, my list actually overlaps Medha's a bit. I definitely think a lot about the crypto end user experience. The proof of unique human or a lost keys service is, I've in fact mapped that out. That would, both of those would be super helpful. And it's something Amazon could do, quite frankly. It's kind of automatable call center type stuff. You guys, or whoever escrows a key and matches that with a video fingerprint. And so you call up, you talk to a literal human, not anything automated, and they are then comparing your live real-time conversation where they're asking you questions with that video fingerprint. And if all that works, then they click the automation, signs a key, and that's your lost key service. And kind of also proof of this key equals Jeff Garzik, which is that's a huge primitive in DeFi and elsewhere that the crypto's been trying to solve for a decade more.
I mean, we did build that in Casper, so you can actually do key recovery on Casper at the layer 1 without sharing private keys, right? So you can actually delegate a second key to have all the authorities, and you could put the primary key in cold storage, just as you described. So we built that at layer 1. So we have that, but it doesn't solve the transfer problem, right? Like I said, if I want something, get the team to build it. So they built it, but it doesn't solve the transfer problem, right? So we do have a way to do key recovery. So you can have an operational private key that you use. This is your day in, day out. And then you've got a key that you put in cold storage, or you give to somebody to put in cold storage. You say, hey, yo, I lost my key. Revoke that key and give me a new key. And that other key can do that, right? So we built that backdoor, like, that support structure for users, but transferring to a different address, a wrong address, is something I haven't been able to crack yet.
Definitely noted on both fronts. And one product that was coming to my mind as Jeff was talking to, if you wanted to have that live chat, is we have AWS connections, which could it ties to conferencing, basically those types of calls that are coming in, how to help those people take those calls. So that could be anyone out there thinking about building that, happy to help out.
Yeah, just plain old, the final is just plain old customer support.
Yep.
We see across the entirety of DeFi is all these are open source protocols. It's adapt. There's some product documentation, but the missing link for all of these is a normal human you can call up on the phone who can answer questions. And so just plain old boring customer service. I'd love to see that as well.
Excellent. Yeah, and that's where that connections product, we announced it at reInvent last year, and it's taken off just in all aspects of how it's used. So that could be an interesting one to look at. Next question. This is for all of you, and Jordan, I'll start with you on it. All three of you are visionaries, just working in the space, the pioneers, if you will, of the space. What is the future of DeFi? Where does this go? We've talked a lot about it. What are some of the things that, like, when you look out, say we have this conversation, we get together 5 years, 10 years from now, or even longer, where do you see this going? And I'll start with you on that, Jordan.
Sure. So there are a couple of things that come to mind there. The first is, right now we've really built a almost like a decentralized version of what is currently offered in traditional finance. And this has built the foundation that I've mentioned several times. But something that I don't think we've covered today is the composability aspect of DeFi. And what we mean a lot of times when we're talking about this, you'll hear us refer to it as these applications are Lego bricks. And so with these Lego bricks, you can start to put them together and you can start to build really cool applications like we're starting to do. But what I think about with the future of DeFi is, yes, you can build applications where you take these core Lego bricks, but you can also start to form giant Lego bricks. And so once we start to build the kind of the next level where you have these powerful applications with multiple Lego bricks, then you can start to put those Lego bricks together. So you have giant Lego bricks coming together. And so I think that you can start to push the boundaries beyond just these decentralized versions of traditional finance applications and really do really powerful things. So start to revolutionize how we think about how money can be used and what we can do with it and how your money can work harder for you. So that's first thing. The second thing is, I think in order for us to really push DeFi forward, we have to become, we have to go beyond just Ethereum or just thinking about things in a single chain. And I think that we are going to start to see more of these bridges where we're starting to do more where it's Ethereum and Casper working together, where it's Ethereum and other chains, or Casper and Polygon, and coming together to build an entire DeFi universe. That's where this is what we're starting to really think about, and starting to think about how we can expand this universe, and starting to launch our pools on more than just Ethereum, launching on other chains, and I think that we really are wanting to do so on Casper as well as L2 chains. So excited about where we can go to expand the entire universe.
Medha, I'll turn to you for your thoughts on that.
I think we are just beginning, right? As we indicated, that the TAM is like the ceiling knows no limit, right? In terms of what the TAM could possibly be. And I feel that we haven't even begun to see the kind of innovation that is possible in this space with this tool, right? The concept of programmable money, and being able to engage in what I like to refer to is like multi-party transactions, right? Like right now, our traditional finance systems, the minute you start talking about multi-party transactions, things get very, very messy very quickly. and they take a long time, and there's a lot of paperwork, right? Blockchain allows for thousands of people to interact with a single contract. I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? In terms of the level of multi-party transactions that are possible using blockchain, right? And the new kinds of markets that could be discovered, and the new kinds of offerings and products that can be discovered. I think what we're seeing right now in this space is just the beginning of the innovation. I think as more people get exposed to these protocols, and there's greater adoption of developers and even financial institutions using blockchain technology, they're going to come up with new and creative protocols and creative offerings for consumers, right, and businesses. And I think it's going to be a challenging road full of potholes, right? Because like one of the things that when Jordan was mentioning is that, you've got these little Lego blocks that you can build and build really cool applications. Well, one of those things is flash loans, right? Flash loans are like, when you think about how they can be used, right, and exploited, right? And so I think we have some work to do in the space to garner more trust and to make the protocols harder and more secure and to prevent against these attacks, right? And audits are very expensive. So I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us, right? But if we as a community, I think we're up for the challenge. I think we're going to see some really, really amazing products come out in the future.
Excellent. And Jeff?
Sure. Well, I have a kind of four-pronged, are we there yet? Litmus test, and the first prong is self-sovereign. Can you hold your own keys? As some people may not know, a bank account's essentially an IOU. They're holding your money, and writing a check is asking them permission to spend your money. So cryptocurrency is fundamentally about payment freedom and owning your own destiny for better and worse. That's the first leg is, can you be self-sovereign? The second leg, can you pay privately? I love the being able to go through blockchain block explorers and provide a link to my transaction when I'm doing business. But Apple and Samsung, for example, two big competitors, might not want their own private corporate transactions fully visible and analyzable to anyone in the world. So second litmus test leg is pay privately, have privacy. The third leg is can you use a mortgage-like instrument, a multi-year, even multi-decade type instrument. And that's smart contracts. That's programmable logic on top of those tokens and blockchains. And then the fourth leg is over a multi-decade period of time. That's sustainability, that's stable coins, et cetera. So can you hold your own keys privately to a mortgage, pay privately to a mortgage-like instrument over a multi-decade period of time? That's kind of the we've arrived moment, at least personally for me. And just to echo Jordan and Medha, is we're really early days in terms of that checklist that I just laid out. So there's a lot more building to do. There's a lot of regulatory environment to be sorted out. Right now, Bitcoin has very clear regulatory clarity out in the world. It is not a security. It is clearly a commodity. And governments have figured out how to tax it, how to track it. DeFi isn't there yet. DeFi is still in that gray area. So there's a lot of regulatory sorting that's going to happen, post this session in the next 6 months, 12 months in the short term. That's going to evolve. And then finally, the central bank digital currencies, is that going to remain kind of stablecoin private level where they're linked to currencies, or is that going to have a central bank literally be a prime player in DeFi? And central banks releasing logic, releasing smart contracts for the Federal Reserve discount window or repos or something like that. So it's it's such early days that it's tough to project beyond what we've already seen with Bitcoin. With governments discover, they regulate, they reach a level of comfort, and then we have a next stepwise iteration.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you all three on that, because I think that's where it's like people's minds start like, where does this go? What can I be building? How can I add something to this space and play in it? So we have received some questions from the audience. So I'll start with, we've got a few of them here. I'll start with the first one. This is from Andrew from BitBuy. He asks, how can one be always aware of the different products being built or released in the DeFi, what's it say, in the DeFi product sector? So how can one always be aware of the different products being built or released in DeFi, essentially? I'll open it up to anybody to answer these.
Oh, well, the best answer is maybe the worst answer. On the tip of my tongue, it's crypto Twitter, which is kind of a bad answer, right? But that's also how, frankly, I keep up with a lot of the latest technologies. It's the familiar answer of, DeFi websites, DeFiPulse.com, CoinDesk, some of the familiar crypto medias. Surprisingly, pleasant surprise, CNBC and some of the financial medias, they're starting to pick up on DeFi as well. But there's not one central canonical you can go here location as far as I'm aware.
I was also going to add that to get involved in some of the Discord channels or Telegram channels, where a lot of times these will be good entry points for users to learn more and also to ask questions. And so you'll see people say, hey, here's a new product, check it out. I've started to play around with it.
Anything to add on that, Medha?
Oh gosh, the reason you can't find something centralized is because it's decentralized by nature, right? So that's the difficulty, and you would have to, by definition, list them in some form of some order, right? And that becomes a challenge too, because then who's at the top of the list? I think coin market cap isn't a bad place to go. You would have to look at the coins then and understand which DeFi, which have to do research on the protocols themselves to understand what the tokens are for those DeFi protocols. So, and those are really just the tokenized DeFi protocols, not all of them necessarily.
Great. And another question, this comes from Alex, and they ask, how do we get more mass adoption in the general population? Solving this and educating the larger economy. What's maybe your one or two thoughts? I mean, we could spend another hour probably on that, but just curious, anyone's like, just an initial thought on how do we help educate people to understand this, to bring it to the mainstream and to where that's a part of life?
I think that the biggest thing is accessibility. Right now, it's still very challenging to onboard onto DeFi. We started to tackle a lot of the onboarding challenges into crypto itself, but going from just, I have crypto, I now want to get involved with DeFi, is still a challenge. And so once we can start to overcome some of those obstacles, then we're going to see a lot more people adopt DeFi and start participating. So integrations and really the best teacher is actually like participating, start using the platforms. And so it will come with time, but I think that everybody right now is starting to focus on how we can get DeFi into more people's hands and what it takes to do so.
Yeah, I have a great short story about there was a 13-year-old Nigerian girl who had interacted with Uniswap once. And as a result, she received, when Uniswap initiated their Uni token, she received at the time approximately $1,200 worth of Uni airdrop. She held on to it for a couple months, and it was at that time worth over $5,000. And so just playing with this newfangled thing, to use some Southern lingo, this young girl taught herself economics, taught herself finance, She participated in this decentralized permissionless network, and she got kind of a form of UBI, which, you know, on the personal and philanthropic side, I'm kind of interested in. And so it was really an illustration of someone who didn't have a whole lot of advantages. They participated in this new, hopefully egalitarian network, and they kind of got a form of UBI as a result. And she took that and she, you know, invested it further, and it grew. And it was all from just a single, I'm going to play with this new Uniswap thing, that all of that blossomed from. And so that's a story that can be a microcosm repeated billions of times across the world. You know, the economic incentive, I think, is the answer to how we onboard, the answer to your question. But then again, you know, there's the scaling challenge of where to onboard them all. And we're kind of stepwise functioning each of those answers as we progress through history.
Gosh, my answer is going to be multifold. It's going to, you know, kind of build on what Jeff said, right? So if you think about when you're at the grocery store and you're paying for your groceries, the 80-year-old grandma in front of you is whipping out her checkbook, right? And you are probably using your credit card if you're 50, 60 something, and your kid will just use Venmo, or they'll just tap their cell phone onto the ATM, onto the point of sale machine, right? And so I think there's going to be a natural progression away from the way things are done. And this newer generation, like my kids, don't know what a CD is. I remember CD and tapes, they only use digital music, right? So we saw that revolution from physical media to purely digital media happen, and the transition took about 15 to 20 years. I feel that this transition will probably take on the order of decades. It's not going to happen in years. I think it will happen in decades. And what I feel will probably wind up happening is the crypto, like, you know, cryptocurrency will build up enough infrastructure in its ecosystem to where it will be a seamless integration, right? We use the internet every day. We don't care about the HTTP protocol. Nobody cares about it, but it's what powers the internet, right? And I see blockchain and cryptocurrency as a trust layer over top of HTTP, right? It makes those interactions that you can perform over the internet trusted. And with that, there's a whole bunch of things you can do now that you couldn't do before. But I feel that the interfaces into the system will be made very, very easy for users to adopt at such point that they'll just start expecting features, and they may not even know or care that they're using blockchain behind it, right? So you may have a new mortgage, and that mortgage may be completely done in Bitcoin, but it's not going to be anything novel by that point. It just will be the way things are done, right? Or it'll be backed by Bitcoin and it'll be in fiat.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, this has been fantastic. I can't believe this hour is already over. It flew. So thank you to everyone who's attended and listened in. Obviously we did this virtually. Soon we'll be doing these face-to-face, which would be really nice. And one thing I'll just say, AWS is here to support those companies, anyone who's looking to start, whatever we can do. I'll give a shout out to my startup fintech team that I worked really closely in putting this together. One thing that I just really want to shout out to is I can't thank you, the three panelists here. I can't thank you enough for your time, but your insights, your knowledge, and so forth. It's been fun working with your companies and what we can do to kind of help out, but just love where you're taking your companies and where you're going on that. And it's inspiration for anyone out there looking to start. So with that, one thing I will say is we do have a survey that's in there. Anyone would love to give me a critique. I always look to improve. What can we do better on this? So please fill that out and we will go from there. So, but with that, again, I can't thank you enough, Medha, Jordan, and Jeff, for your insights, and to everyone joining. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.